Do you believe in free speech? Do you believe that people should be judged by their character, not their skin color? Do you believe in freedom of religion? If you believe these things, you're probably not a progressive. You might think you're a progressive. I used to think I
Oh,
was. My
oh
show, The Rubin
shit.
Report, was originally part of the Progressive Young Turks network.
Oh no.
Progressives struck me as liberals but louder. Progressives were the nice guys. They looked out for the little guy. They cared about women and minorities. They embraced
Yeah.
change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In short, who wouldn't want to be a progressive? But over the last couple of years, the meaning of the word progressive has changed. Progressives used to say, I may disagree with what you say, but I'll fight to the death for your right to say it. Not
I don't know if I've ever really thought about that on the left, to be honest with you.
I mean, I don't know if they ever allow terrorist montages and applications on Twitter.
And Nazis and shit. I
Yeah.
mean, like, we fight for the right for you to exist. You
Yeah.
can live free.
I mean,
but...
the ACLU did allow
Right.
Nazis to go through like Jewish areas, which that's all right. The ACLU supports it. I understand for that, but then again, that's just like public protest.
Yeah, like, okay, let's see where he's leading. I mean, like, I think free
Yeah.
speech is fine. I don't think the government should have the authority to tell you what to say. But I feel like this is going to lead into, like, Twitter.
Yeah.
right to say it. Not anymore. Banning speakers whose opinions you don't agree with from college campuses, that's not progressive.
Uh,
I mean, to be honest with you, I've never really agreed with that position when college campuses
Yeah.
do it. But I understand why they do it. I mean, let's be real. The reception isn't going to be great for them anyway. But the problem is that it's like two versions of free speech. It's like these people don't want them there, and this person wants to speak there. It's one person versus presumably a few hundred people. Whose free speech matters more in that situation? Whose opinion should be taken into account more? And maybe I don't know, man, because the arguments I think are always kind of clumsy from that side. It's like, well, oh, they might bring harm. I mean, maybe, but like, you're in college campuses. You're kind of in a situation where you're so, what's the word, like, you're so, like, you're already kind of in a bubble anyway. Everyone around you is overwhelmingly one way.
Yeah.
But to be fair, like, they have some Republican groups on campuses. Like, don't they have Tapusa? Or, no, not Tapusa.
Or TPUSA.
TPUSA, yeah,
Yeah.
Tapusa. They have it on...
It's like you have the clubs for all these conservatives.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I mean, they should just be allowed to speak there if they want to.
That's true, too. Yeah. I mean, to be fair, though, I don't think it's totally there, but I don't know. It really depends. Like, we have a lot of these high-profile cases. But they're usually at, like, these high-profile schools that I'm too dumb to get into.
Yeah.
Prohibiting any words not approved of as politically correct, that's not progressive.
Well, I don't know if they'd let you say the N-word.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. No, that's just, like, a work policy thing. You can't... Like, yeah.
And even then, like, UCLA and other places like that, they've allowed people saying sort of racist things if it didn't necessarily mean you impacted somebody's ability to be there. Like, there's been cases in the past where I remember there was one lady who talked, like, just started, like, making fun of Chinese or, like, Asian accents. And she was doing that in the library. Or no, she was making fun of people in the library speaking in, like, Asian accents because they were calling their families after tsunami had happened. And she was still allowed to be at UCLA, even though she wasn't politically correct, because technically they still have to follow some very strict First Amendment guidelines.
Is she like was she like a faculty member? Or was
No, she was a student. She was a student who was there.
There's more leeway for them,
Yeah.
though, you know?
And then again, she also posted online. The thing is, if she had said that inside the library, then she could have been kicked for impacting a person's ability to be there. And also making them feel like it's not a safe environment. Because if you make an environment feel unsafe for a group of people, and impact their ability to use the environment, then you could sort of argue that it's an attack on their use of the facility.
That's kind of a loose definition, though, isn't it? Like, it's not really that you don't feel safe, it's that you don't really feel comfortable. I mean, is that the same thing? I don't really know. A lot of times when you feel unsafe, you probably do feel uncomfortable. But every time you feel uncomfortable, are you necessarily unsafe? I don't fucking know.
Although if you're uncomfortable, where you're supposed to have the ability to
be
effectively
comfortable.
study,
Yeah,
Yeah, like can you
exactly.
effectively study if you're uncomfortable?
That's
Could
a
you
good point.
effectively go through your classes day to day if you're uncomfortable?
Mm-hmm.
Putting trigger
You're dumb.
warnings on books, movies, music, anything that might offend people, that's not progressive either.
Well,
I don't
why
really
not?
care.
Why not just let them know?
I don't really
Like,
care.
why can't you just give more information?
Wait,
You're
hold
like,
on. Trigger warnings? You mean like ESRB ratings and shit?
yeah,
I mean, like, we already have that on, like, shit now. Like, hey,
like
there's, like,
we have M
violence,
rating, R
blood,
rating.
drugs. Yeah, like,
Mm,
if you ever played a video game in your life, you got the trigger warnings on the box.
yeah.
Uh,
Even let you know if you have like seizures. You know, they let you know, hey,
yeah,
this shit can fuck you up.
and you want to know why the system that we have is generally better, even though there are issues with it? It's better generally because it's, the ESRB is actually the industry regulating itself, which there are some issues with it, like with loot boxes. And that's a really bad thing. That's a huge thing. They don't actually count loot boxes in the rating
Yeah.
system. But for the most part, it keeps the government out of rating video games and keeps them out of like the moral sphere. This is why you want so-called trigger warnings on these boxes, because the government's going to want to put them anyway. There's going to be blood and violence and all that shit. Like, people are going to want to know. I don't know.
Well, maybe he just doesn't like the free market.
It is, yeah, exactly. It was a free market solution. So bad, Dave Rubin, bad.
All of this has led me to believe that much of the left is no longer
Man,
progressive,
this is so
but
easy.
regressive. This is one of the reasons I've spent so much time on my show talking about
Regressives.
The regressive left.
the regressive left. This
Weren't they called woke scolds? Weren't they? Isn't that what they call them in the Vosh community?
Yeah, I think woke scolds.
Woke scolds. Yeah, I mean, hey
But
man.
then again, Dave
Oh.
would call basically anyone who's truly left
A woke
a
scold.
regressive.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I don't give a fuck. Fuck you, Dave Rubin. Let's keep going.
regressive ideology doesn't judge
yeah?
people as individuals, but as a collective.
How?
If you're black or female or Muslim or Hispanic or member of any other minority
Okay.
group, you're judged differently than the most evil of all things, a white Christian male.
I mean, if you want to look at like criminal statistics and judge statistics and how they sentence rulings on different cases, you can sort of group it together where if you're like a white male, you get like less time on a thing than a black male, or like females, they get different times on different crimes than males. I mean, if you look statistically, you can see different group patterns and how they're respected by the justice system.
Ignore it. That's dumb.
Yeah, it's like, why would you ignore like an empirical truth?
You are judged differently if you're different races.
Or you can see how, you know, like different religions are treated differently. Like you said, Christian white male. It's like, yeah, like a Christian white male is being beaten on 9/11. There's people who aren't even like Muslim or are part of that part of the world that are beaten up on 9/11 day because they look the part.
You mean
know,
like
the
Sikhs
Christian
and
white
shit?
male, huh?
Like what you
Yeah,
talking
like
about
the
with
Sikhs. Yeah, like they're beaten up because they're seen as the people who did 9/11, which obviously they aren't. They're even part of the same region. And would a Christian white male be treated that way? No. But that's the thing that happens every time 9/11 comes around. People of who look that part in the American mind, that's how they're treated.
See, but that's the problem, though. Acknowledging these realities means that, hey, we just got to admit that there's some fault, and we got to think about these things a little. That's it. It's like, no, it's too challenging for Dave Rubin. Dave Rubin's head, it's like, it only has so much RAM in it. It can only run so many things at once before it just fucking
The hate
pops.
crime file doesn't exist. It's like hate crimes aren't a thing in Dave Rubin's mind.
That file got deleted.
The regressive left ranks minority groups in a pecking order to compete in a kind of oppression Olympics. Gold medal goes to the most offended. Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream that his children would be judged by their character and not their skin color was a liberal idea, but these days it's not a
Martin Luther King, his children would be judged by their character and not by their skin color.
It's a little ironic he brings it up when Texas is trying to get rid of his letter from Birmingham jail article, or his letter from Birmingham jail.
Well, that's because he was a criminal. Texas don't like criminals. God damn.
I mean, the progressives want to keep that in.
Yeah, I mean, are you
Republicans
sure
don't.
about that? Yeah, that's the thing. Republicans are the ones who want to routinely rewrite history books. I remember there was I forget what state, but there was a case where they tried to rewrite this, like, rewrite the word slave to be worker. Like, let's be real. Like, it's the Republicans that want to whitewash it. Like, How many times have we heard about the Republicans talking about how, oh, the Democrats were the people who enslaved African people, but never acknowledged that the party flipped? Like, the parties flipped. They flipped on labor, then they flipped on race. Then they flipped again on liberalism. So it seems like in terms of who wants to regress, it's the Republicans. They have this idea in their mind of a better time when they could be as racist as they want. And they want to... Do you remember the time, Martha, when we could just call a doggy a doggy? No? You don't remember? Like, are we going back to that? Like, is that the glorious era you guys want to return to? I don't understand this shit. I hope...
Progressive ideal. And what about religious freedom? The idea that no one else can tell you what you have to believe. Surely progressives still support that basic right.
I don't know.
Well, not so much. I'm a married gay man, so you might think that I appreciate the government forcing a Christian baker or photographer or florist to act against their religion in order to clean or photograph or decorate my wedding. But you'd be wrong. A government that can force Christians to violate their conscience can force me to violate mine. If a baker won't bake you a cake, find another baker. Don't demand that the state tell him what to do with his private business. I'm pro-choice, but...
Wait, I'm gonna rewind. I missed that. Fuck.
Okay, yeah.
But you'd be wrong. A government that can force Christians to violate their conscience can force me to violate mine. If a baker won't bake you a cake, find another baker.
You know, there was a time when you were allowed to discriminate based on race.
Hey, you know...
And you could have just told them, just find another school. Plessy versus Ferguson was pretty rad.
Find another water fountain.
Like, that's what Dave Rubin would say. Dave Rubin...
Hey.
Probably thinks Plessy versus Ferguson, the right to keep everybody equal is pretty cool, because if the Schoolmeister doesn't want you to be there, Dave Rubin would just say, like, well, you gotta find another school.
Hey, you Republicans love your euphemisms. Find a darker side of town.
Yeah.
Like, come on, man. Like, you should be more literate than this on history.
Yeah.
Like, you know for a goddamn fact that people were not allowed to buy shit from businesses that they were the wrong skin color.
With this line of logic, you wouldn't be like, you'd be okay with separate but equal. Like, you're trying to say, like, well, you just gotta find people who would accept it.
Is this a mask off moment for Rubin?
His mask's always been off.
Don't demand that the state tell him what to do with his private business. I'm pro-choice, but a government that can force a group of Catholic nuns, literally called the Little Sisters of the Poor, to violate their faith and pay for abortion-inducing birth control can force anyone to do anything.
Let me guess. You know what? I'm gonna just take a shot in the dark and say either A, he's lying or he's misrepresenting it. And I'm just gonna assume they wanted either A, contraceptives, or B, it was a rape.
That's not progressive, that's regressive. Today's progressivism has become a faux moral...
See, here's the thing I'm gonna just say to this, and what's really progressive, at least in my mind, Mr. Rubin, is simple. Whatever gives people more rights and more access, positive freedoms, whatever. It's not about who's not allowing them to do a thing. It's about what they can actually do. I've been poor my whole goddamn life. And all the things I've heard about in America, most of them I actually haven't really been able to do. Like, I've never been in, like, the nicest of nice cars. I've seen them on the road. I've looked at them. I think I've been in one once on a show floor, or in nice homes, or in all that, or had access to the best schools, or even to the safest buses. Hell, even to the best food. It's like, whatever system creates a world where those things are no longer an issue, where, yeah, you have access to the best college or the best education that we could build, where you have access to decent food, when you have access to safe transportation. Those are things that I would call freedom, not the deregulation of car manufacturers so you could buy increasingly shittier cars, more polluting cars that make the air poison. Like, whatever increases your actual material ability is freedom.
Movement hurling charges of racism, bigotry, xenophobia, homophobia, Islamophobia, and a slew of other meaningless buzzwords at anyone they disagree with.
What about all the economic shit we've talked about for decades upon decades upon decades? Bernie Sanders' entire campaign was built on economics. What about all that shit? You just forgot about it? Or you're just not going to mention it because, hey, it made us look good. And you guys suck on that shit. You guys really suck on it. You guys would prefer that poison air in a big factory than a bunch of clean jobs and no dead or no miscarried fetuses because of the fucking poisonous ass air from the factory. Like,
The battle of ideas has been replaced by a battle of feelings, and outrage has replaced honesty. Diversity
honesty. Honesty, you fucking bastard.
reigns supreme as long as it's not that pesky diversity of thought.
Pesky, pesky, pesky? What the fuck you talking about? You guys hate Muslims that you think the exact same as they do. You guys can't even tolerate people who think the same way, but they call themselves a different thing. That's how intolerant you guys are. You guys are intolerant to a fault. You know how powerful you'd be if you and the Muslims combined? You guys have, between your two populations, like probably 2-3 billion people, you pretty much would rule every voting bloc in every major country across the planet. But you don't, because you guys are fucking stupid. Your own stupidity kills you, and it's funny. But you guys could win. You guys believe in the same shit. But you hate each other so much, you will never work together. So good job. You guys are a self-destructive movement. You can't even recognize when you guys have the same interest.
This isn't a recipe for a free society, it's a recipe for authoritarianism. For these reasons, I can no longer call myself a progressive. I don't really call myself a Democrat either. I'm a classical liberal, a free thinker, and as
A classical liberal. Classical liberal. I remember when a lot of the people who ended up just being Republicans were calling themselves this. This is just Republican. You're just conservative. You just wanted the punch to hit softer. So you're gonna call it something softer.
You want to appeal more to the moderate demographic.
Good for you. You're learning how to play politics. It's almost like you've been paid to write this.
as much as I don't like to admit it, defending my liberal values has suddenly become a conservative position. So if you think people should be able to say what they think without being punished for it, that people should be judged by their behavior, not their skin color.
Well, you know, when you go back to the criminal justice system, like something that Dave Rubin wouldn't really acknowledge is that if you're of a darker complexion, you're more likely to get more years. But in Dave Rubin's world, you shouldn't look at those statistics at all.
You judge them by the skin. Judge them. If you bring up skin color, you're judging them by the color of their skin, not by the content of their character. Okay, forehead. Okay, you don't understand. You can't bring it up ever.
And that people should be able to live the way that they want to live without government interference, then there's not much left.
You hate everybody. You don't like gay people. You don't like trans people. You don't like Muslims. That you believe the same shit.
Know, and a lot of conservatives didn't like that him and his husband were having kids.
Oh yeah, you're regularly shit on by your own party because you like dick. You did the cardinal sin of being a gay man. Nothing wrong with it. We're in California. There's gay people.
Yeah, power on you, man.
We're 30 minutes away from West Hollywood. In fact, there's probably gay gas floating down here right now.
Yeah.
Damn it. But the point is, fuck. Hold on. The point is, it's fine, all right? Like, you would have been liked and accepted, even if you're just a liberal, even if you're just kind of like a blue dog Democrat liberal. But no, you saw the grift. But it's like, come on, man. Does it ever feel like they don't even look at you like, let's be toxically masculine for a second. Doesn't it hurt that they don't look at you like a man? That they talk down to you about you and your husband? Imagine. You, whatever, right? Because it's you. But that's your husband.
I mean, when your friend Ben Shapiro wouldn't even want to go to, like, your wedding.
Yeah, like...
Because, you know, he's not regressive.
Yeah, he's not regressive. No, they just hate everything about you and your husband. God, like, dude, man, like, fucking ball up a little bit. Ball the fuck up. Like, confront them. I'm like, hey, aren't you guys free thinkers? No, aren't you guys, like, pro-freedom?
Ben Shapiro read everything from every Jewish handbook he's ever seen. And now he knows every single piece of thought he'll ever need to know.
God, Dave Rubin. Like, if you just stopped being a, like, grifter or, like, a jagoff, or maybe if you just stopped being an idiot for, like, a little while, you would see that they hate you.
Left on the left for you. I'll keep trying to explain that to progressives until I'm totally left out.
Just remember something about the left is that you guys are constantly bitching about how many identities we have, how many genders we have, how accepting we are of immigrants. You You guys are constantly bitching about us wanting to open up our borders to the whole fucking planet, even though no real politicians have said anything near that fucking point. You literally talked about how we're too diverse, and now you're talking about how your side is a diverse side. Okay, great.
Yeah, there's a reason why the Democrat voter population is significantly more diverse than the conservative population, which is mainly white male, which is why Tucker Carlson, he talks about how white males are being basically turned into minorities.
Well, when you live in this world, man.
I'm Dave Rubin of the Rubin Report for Prager University.
You sure are.
To subscribe to our YouTube.
Fuck off.